Mike Tyson fights live and free on Fox, Saturday night, November 4th. Fox brings you the free TV event of the decade.
Tyson versus Mathis, live Saturday, November 4th on Fox, 36.
Tyson and RIDDICK BOWE will both be fighting November 4th in Las Vegas, but not against each other. Thursday, they both put on public workouts, with BOWE preparing for Evander Holyfield, going through a full, rigorous sparring session. Iron Mike, who will be fighting Buster Mathis, said he was a little embarrassed to be working out in front of 1,000 people. He cut things a little short. Tyson did a few neck exercises, then hit the bag for a few minutes. Tyson left in less than half an hour, prompting some in the crowd to boo, but Tyson came back to sign autographs for about an hour after that.
And a week from Saturday night, Mike Tyson is expected to pound Buster Mathis Jr. into opponent-dom. While down the strip in Las Vegas, RIDDICK BOWE and Evander Holyfield are expected to be more competitive. Tyson is the star ascendant in a fight on over-the-air television.
I don't necessarily see it in such a bad state. It's just the fact that you people have been spoiled just seeing me fight and being champion for so long. I've been off 4 years. If I was competing and fighting constantly for 4 years, your guys wouldn't even consider these fights, you know what I mean, competitive. You wouldn't even come and see the fights probably.
For every action, there's a reaction. So everybody know how Mike Tyson's gonna act November 4th. So it's up to me how I'm going to react. Well, I ain't gonna tell you.
The boxing press conference. Buster Mathis Jr. last fought in early August. It was a one-round TKO, same as Mike Tyson over Peter McNeely some 2 weeks later.
You won't see it on pay-per-view, and it's not on cable. It's only on Fox. This Saturday, Mike Tyson continues his quest to regain the heavyweight championship when he takes on Buster Mathis Jr. live Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, only on Fox.
Fox brings you the free TV event of the decade. Miller Lite presents Tyson versus Mathis.
Welcome to Doctor's Halftime. Coming up on November the 4th, Fox Sports will proudly present a heavyweight boxing extravaganza as Mike Tyson continues his comeback, taking on Buster Mathis Jr. in Las Vegas, Nevada. And joining us right now from Las Vegas is Buster Mathis Jr. And Buster, how is training camp going right now? Are you pleased with the way things are progressing?
Well, I'm doing everything right. I think training camp is doing excellent for me. I got one of the best trainers in the world, Joe FARIELLO. I got some of the best sparring. And this fight is more getting mentally prepared as well as physically.
Help the public understand, I mean, you're a young fighter at age 25 with 20 fights under your belt, but what should give the public confidence that you really can give Mike Tyson a good fight?
Well, you know, I'm very confident, you know, and when I'm going there to fight Mike Tyson, I know what Mike knows. We're from the school of D'Amato, and my father was trained under D'Amato. FARIELLO was trained under D'Amato, so I know what Mike Tyson's going to do. Now it's up to me what I'm going to do.
Speaking of your father, the fact that he passed recently, will that be problematic for you that you won't have him in your corner, or will that be a source of inspiration?
Well, it's a source of inspiration because my father is with me all the time, you know. My father got me to this point. He's the one that predicted that I'm going to fight Mike. So technically, my father will be with me in spirit.
Buster, clearly you know of all the Mike Tyson talk, and it seems like maybe he might be overlooking you. As a matter of fact, there's a report that Mike Tyson has a bout set with Frank Bruno for March the 16th. Do you feel slighted that so many people seemingly are overlooking you?
Well, I don't know. I think it's good. If Mike Tyson overlooking me, I think it's good because he's underestimating me, and I love when people underestimate me.
And this won't be an 89-second bout against Mike Tyson on November 4th?
I am no McNeely. I'm Buster Mathis, and I can bring it to him.
And a reminder that the Mike Tyson-Buster Mathis Jr. fight will be coming to you live right here on Fox Saturday, November the 4th from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern, 5 to 8 p.m. Pacific time. And we'll have more Doctor's Halftime after this.
Get charged for the free TV event of the decade. Miller Lite presents Tyson live, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific.
One thing is for sure, it took longer waiting for Mike Tyson to speak today in Las Vegas than it will to watch his entire fight Saturday against Buster Mathis Jr. A double-decker press conference in which Tyson was the crown jewel and so the last gem to speak. 58 minutes after the boxing hyperbole began to flow, Tyson finally spoke. He was into this entire press conference through the day, talking about the fight Saturday, expected to tee him up for a WBC title fight against Frank Bruno next Monday. Wake up, Mike.
Since you've been out, what about boxing has brought you the most happiness?
Winning.
That's it?
Yeah.
Why?
Duh.
Do you feel like your old self? Do you think you can ever get back to that?
Like I said before, it's an ongoing process in developing my skills. I'm just continuing to try, and I've been an actor for 4 years, and it's going to take time, but I feel good. Ask other people questions. Stop asking me questions.
It's a press conference, Mike. Contrast to the day provided by Evander Holyfield, who worked out on all comers, including a group of scouts. He spoke to them as well, let some of them into the ring. Holyfield and BOWE, that's the gimbals to the Tyson's Macy's bout with Mathis on Saturday.
Saturday night here at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas, Riddick Bowe and Evander Holyfield will have at it for a third time in their trilogy. About an hour before their fight and about a mile down the road over at the MGM Grand, Mike Tyson in his second comeback fight against the lightly regarded yet undefeated Buster Mathis Jr. Essentially, that fight appears to be a pit bull against a poodle. In fact, the odds makers give Mathis no more than a 25-to-1 chance to pull off the upset.
I'm not going to do another chunk for Tyson and fall down in 90 seconds.
That's what they all say. Spinks, Stewart, Williams, Tillman, McNeely all failed to finish the first round with Mike Tyson. It all seems so perfect, so symmetrical. Buster Mathis Jr. in the fight of his life, following in his father's footsteps. But 2 months ago, Buster Mathis Sr., his father, his trainer, his best friend, died of heart failure at the age of 52. Buster Mathis Sr. was a solid professional in the mid-60s with a record of 29-3. The losses coming to Jerry Quarry, Joe Frazier, and Muhammad Ali. His dream was for his son to carry on in the family business.
If my father's death did anything, it's encouraged him more to get out there and work harder at what he has to do.
What her brother did was to pack up and leave home, Grand Rapids, Michigan. His next stop would be New York, to work with the same man who trained his father, Joey Fariello.
Buster Sr. was a big guy. He was about 6'3½", 250, 270 pounds, but extremely quick of foot and extremely quick hands. And that was his style. His son, on the other hand, is more of a Joe Frazier type of fighter. He comes right at you.
It's like a transformation. Since my father passed, Joy took over. Now it's all in Joy's hands. I listen to Joy and let Joy guide me.
Yes, sir. You understand what I'm saying? What he does best is he comes at you, he fights, he makes you miss, he bends, and he throws punches. He sets a fast pace.
When looking at Mathis's record, the good news is he's unbeaten, 20-0. The bad news is he has little or no power. Only 6 knockouts in his 4-year professional career. And his opponents haven't exactly been household names either. He decisioned the washed-up Terrell Biggs, and last year, while being beaten up by Riddick Bowe, Bowe hit Mathis while he was down. Officially, that fight was ruled a no contest, leaving Mathis's record still undefeated. Buster Mathis has a high-pitched voice. He's a shy kid. In high school, he was overweight and wholly unremarkable as an athlete. It was only 9 years ago, when he was 16, that Mathis was taught by his dad all about the sport. It was here, at the Pride Boxing Club. But now his father is gone, and how that loss will affect him in the ring on Saturday night is anybody's guess. A similar loss once motivated another Tyson opponent to victory.
I've watched Buster Mathis Jr. for a long time.
Tyson's manager, John Horn, hoping the Freudian slip isn't a premonition. Buster Douglas used the passing of his mother as a motivational tool in what turned out to be the biggest upset in boxing history. Now, what effect will the death of Buster Mathis Sr. have on his son on Saturday night.
Before my father died, he said, as long as you don't let Mike Tyson intimidate me, you won half the battle. So I think the half of battle, I won. So the other half is go in the ring and fight my fight.
Joined now by our friend Al Bernstein. Al, is Buster Mathis Jr. another Peter McNeely?
Well, ironically, Charlie, he actually has more skills than Peter McNeely, but may have less of a chance of winning, primarily because there's a middleweight punch trapped in a heavyweight body there. And that, more than anything, is what you can't have against Mike Tyson, because if you can't keep Tyson off you, you have no chance of winning.
If there is any intrigue at all about Saturday night's fight at the MGM Grand, Tyson and Mathis Jr., it may be Mike Tyson's right hand, which was bandaged and apparently in a good deal of discomfort on Monday, but at the press conference on Tuesday, maybe not so.
Yeah, I think Mike Tyson's right hand may be bothering him, and here's where that provides intrigue for the fight. It may extend the fight 1 or 2 rounds, because if he's not throwing the right, he'll rely more on the left hook, become maybe a more one-dimensional fighter, and we may actually get to see more of what Mike Tyson has and doesn't have, and it may allow Buster Mathis Jr. to take it into the maybe 4th or 5th round.
So the only question is really about the Saturday night Tyson-Buster Mathis Jr. fight is, how long will it last? For Al Bernstein, I'm Charlie Steiner, ESPN at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. On Las Vegas Boulevard, Mike Tyson and Buster Mathis Jr. held their final pre-fight press conference in what might be best described as the theater of the absurd.
Like I said before, it's an ongoing process in developing my skills. I'm just continuing to try, and I've been inactive for 4 years, and it's going to take time, but I feel good. Ask other people questions. Stop asking me questions.
Buster Mathis Jr., by all accounts, has not looked good in sparring. Here in Las Vegas, he has worked out at Johnny TOCCO's gym. TOCCO himself has been somewhat less than impressed with Mathis's work against his sparring partner.
They stand toe-to-toe, and they're really punching at each other. And he can't budge this other kid. So as far as a punch, I don't think he's got any punching power. I don't think he can break an egg. Half cracked.
I got guys who was like 19-0, 8-0, top professionals, you know. Before I was sparring with guys who's like 4-4 or 50-50 fighters. And now I have fighters that teach me something, you know. For the first 2 or 3 weeks, the sparring session wasn't going good because I was getting my butt kicked because they were teaching me something. And now coming close to the fight, Buster Mathis was holding his own.
Holding his own against his sparring partners. Words to live by for Buster Mathis Jr.
Does not inspire confidence leading into a fight with Mike Tyson. Now, if he was fighting Justin Fortune, I might say that would bode well. You know, in 15 years of broadcasting boxing, Charlie, I have never heard a quote like that leading into a major fight.
At the press conference on Tuesday for the Mike Tyson-Buster Mathis Jr. fight, as usual, Mike Tyson didn't have very much to say.
Mike Tyson, it's quite apparent, has become completely disinterested in these affairs, so much so that even members of the press are loath to ask any questions, knowing they're pretty much going to get a one-syllable answer, which, of course, is one more syllable than I got last time from Mike Tyson.
As we well remember. One other piece of news, the Tyson-Mathis fight is indoors at the MGM. Riddick, BOWE, and Evander Holyfield will be fighting outdoors here at Caesars Palace. We tell you that because, as of today, there's a 70% chance of rain here in Las Vegas on Saturday night. For Al Bernstein, Charlie Steiner, ESPN at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas.
So, Mike Tyson fans, free fight. You got what you paid for. Trick or treat. Charlie Steiner joins us from Las Vegas with the news. Believe the announced reason or don't, whatever, it's over. It's all over. To Vegas and Charlie.
Keith, about 4:45 Pacific time on Tuesday afternoon, word started to circulate that something may be amiss in the Tyson-Mathis promotion. We received several phone calls that there would be a hurried news conference at 7 o'clock Pacific time. We then went to work and discovered that, in fact, Mike Tyson had sustained a broken right thumb, somewhere between the knuckle and the fingertip. At the news conference, we got the news.
At 4:10 this afternoon, the MGM Grand was notified by Mike Tyson's doctors that Mike sustained an injury to his right thumb that will preclude him from fighting this Saturday night.
He had an injury to his thumb approximately 3 weeks ago while sparring. The injury is basically a break in the thumb between the main joint of the thumb and the tip of the thumb.
He did
open this fracture up a few millimeters from which we initially saw. Not that it precludes any surgery.
I believe it happened in Ohio somewhere, right before I came here, and then again yesterday and today.
We feel it'll be probably at least another 4 to 6 weeks now before we would allow him to fight again.
There were a lot of skeptics who doubted there could be 2 fights in one night in this town, and now there will not be. We talked with NEWMAN, who is the promoter and manager and confidant of Riddick Bowe, about 2.5 weeks ago, and he had his doubts even then.
I've had a premonition all along that there wouldn't be 2 fights, that something would come up and that the other one would go away. That's not based on any scientific evidence, just a premonition.
And joining me now is Buster Mathis Jr. How did you get the news today?
Well, Joe FARIELLO told me that the fight might be called off because Tyson hurt his or broke his thumb. And instantly I was very upset, very disappointed, because I was looking forward. I trained for about 5 weeks for this fight, and I just feel disappointed.
Do you believe the injury?
Now I do. You know, I think he wouldn't call off the fight if he did. Tyson, being the man that he is, he was, I heard that he wanted to go with the fight, go through with the fight, but he didn't. Now I believe that Tyson had a hurt hand, and I said in the first place because, you know, maybe it was something that to maybe discourage me or something, and now it's the truth.
So what now for you? Is to hurry up and wait? Or are you going to go to work again?
I got to go to work again. I got to keep on going forward. Hopefully going to be another Tyson Mathis fight. But then again, hopefully my next fight may be a title shot. I'm looking around, and you know, I'm not going to let 6 weeks of hard work go up to waste.
Buster Mathis Jr., thank you for joining us. We'll continue our coverage of the Mike Tyson Buster Mathis Jr. cancellation later on SportsCenter when John Saraceno will join me. Welcome back to the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, where on Halloween night we indeed had some strange doings. I'm Charlie Steiner, joined by John Saraceno, the USA Today boxing writer, who joins us on such occasions. And on this Halloween night, it was quite an occasion indeed. What was your reaction to the news that Mike Tyson had broken his right thumb, canceling the fight?
Well, Charlie, it wasn't totally surprising because Mike Tyson vigorously shook that fist yesterday in sparring, and everybody clearly saw it. So we knew that there was something wrong with him. Now, typically, fighters can fight through some hand injuries. They're very common, but for whatever reason, they deemed this one too serious for Mike Tyson to be able to fight Buster Mathis.
You had some doubts as to the severity of the injury, as to whether or not the fight should have been canceled.
Well, I think Mike is hurt. I was told through a source that Tyson 3 or 4 weeks ago had to have the thumb drained. It was very swollen and very tender. My question is, if you have a fighter whose thumb is healing, and that's what the doctor said tonight, why is he sparring 4 or 5 days before the fight, and why is he doing it in front of the media? It just doesn't make sense.
You saw him spar on Monday. What was your take on what you saw?
I thought Mike was aggressive. He certainly has fast hands, and he's powerful. He's going to need more than that to become heavyweight champion of the world again with a guy like Riddick Bowe out there.
What was your take on Buster Mathis as an opponent and this as a promotion?
Well, Buster Mathis was another warm-up fight for Mike Tyson. That's all he was. I mean, this was a fill-in type fight. I don't think the fight will even be rescheduled because they have Frank Bruno on the plate as a title fight next spring. I think it's probably a real downer for Buster Mathis, his career high payday of over $800,000. So I'm sure he's heartbroken over what happened. Mike Tyson, he's going to live to fight another day and make a lot more money.
So on this Halloween night in Las Vegas, a trick-or-treat on the Tyson Mathis promotion. Thumbs down. The fight is off. For John Saraceno, Charlie Steiner at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas.
The beneficiaries of the Tyson cancellation, the other guys scheduled to fight that night, Evander Holyfield and Riddick Bowe. Bowe, who always says he's already seen everything in this game, was one of several members of the pugilistic cognoscenti who did not seem fazed by this news.
You know, some things happen. I mean, it's happening, you have no control over them, but it's unfortunate, and I wish him luck in the future. But I guess that just goes to show you that November 4th was meant to be for Riddick Bowe and Evander Holyfield.
I don't think I was up against him. You know, I'm still against
still against Riddick Bowe. It's just a fight between us.
I'm not at all going to question whether it was a legitimate injury. Now, the facts are that the folks over at the MGM, I don't think, had sold yet 1,500 seats. And I think that that's one of the reasons that people were cynical. But I'm not going to question Mike Tyson's integrity at all.
I thought I could sneak it through. I know I wasn't thinking professionally. It's not my job to think as a doctor. My objective was to basically fight, but the pain became too intense, and it continued hurting during sparring sessions.
Tyson Buster Mathis Jr. fight is off. Didn't even last as long as the McNeely bout. The reason given for the postponement, Iron Mike's broken thumb suffered a few weeks ago.
We gave it 3 weeks. Unfortunately, today, we got a call in the office that Mike was on his way over, had sustained a re-injury to the thumb, and on the x-rays taken today, the fracture that already started to heal had basically rebroken.
Some believe Mathis should look at the Halloween cancellation not as a trick, but as a treat, not Buster. He said, quote, "I call it a fake. I don't think Mike's hurt." After cooling off a little, he chatted with our Charlie Steiner.
Instantly, I was very upset, very disappointed, because I was looking forward. I trained for about 5 weeks for this fight, and I just feel disappointed. Tyson, being the man that he is, he was... I heard that he wanted to go with the fight, go through with the fight, but he didn't. Now, I believe that Tyson had a hurt hand.
Tyson's manager, John Horn, says the fight will be rescheduled, but Mathis handlers are skeptical that the bout will ever happen. Doctors say Iron Mike can't go for 4 to 6 weeks anyway. And by the way, tickets for this fight moving about like seats for a Milli Vanilli reunion tour. If the other fight, or we should say the fight in Vegas, doesn't come off, BOWE and HOLYFIELD, that is, they can blame it on the rain. 70% chance of the wet stuff. Riddick and his manager not shocked or disappointed to be the only show in town.
You know, some things happen. I mean, it's happening, you have no control over them, but it's unfortunate, and I wish him luck in the future. But I guess that just goes to show you that November 4th was meant to be for Riddick Bowe and Evander Holyfield.
I'm not at all going to question whether it was a legitimate injury. Now, the facts are that the folks over at the MGM, I don't think, had sold yet 1,500 seats. And I think that that's one of the reasons that people were cynical. But I'm not going to question Mike Tyson's integrity at all.
One fight gone, the weather threatens another. Perhaps nature's special message to boxing.
I'm Dave Cotton with Headline Sports. Fox has been boxed out. The Fox network paid $10 million to air Mike Tyson's scheduled heavyweight fight against Buster Mathis Jr. Saturday night in Las Vegas. But Tyson was forced to pull out because of a broken right thumb suffered in training. Obviously a setback for Fox and for Tyson.
It's a pretty serious setback as far as my continuation on constant fights, you know what I mean? But, you know what I mean, it's not going to kill me, you know what I mean? I'm not hurt for any money or anything, but I just wish I was really in anticipation for this fight to go on, knowing that the other fight was across the street, and I thought it was just been a grand evening that night.
Well, I think it's very unfortunate because, you know, I really wanted to see who the people would gravitate towards to, Mike Tyson or Riddick Bowe and Evander Holyfield. You know, I still wish him luck and I hope things work out for him. It's just unfortunate, and, you know, some things happen.
Tyson's handlers are vowing to honor their contract to fight Mathis Jr.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. I'm Paul Crane.
And I'm Barry LeBrock. Big news in boxing tonight, and things are not the way they were planned for this weekend coming up.
Good news for Buster Mathis. Concussion delayed. Bad news, no big payday, at least not yet. All of a sudden, boxing's 2-fight card night in Las Vegas is back to just one. Mike Tyson has a break in his right thumb, and his fight with Buster Mathis Jr. has been called off, leaving the Riddick Bowe Evander Holyfield bout down the street where it started as the one fight in town. Tyson re-injured the thumb on Monday while training in Las Vegas after first hurting it about 3 weeks ago in training. Also hurt from this is Fox Television, which had paid $10 million to put the Tyson fight on free TV right in the middle of the year's most important ratings period. That'll be long gone once Tyson is ready to go in 4 to 6 weeks.
It's a pretty serious setback as far as my continuation on constant fights, you know what I mean? But, you know what I mean, it's not going to kill me, you know what I mean? I'm not hurt for any money or anything, but I just wish I was really in anticipation for this fight to go on, knowing that the other fight was across the street, and I thought it was just been a grand evening that night. 2 heavyweight fights going on the same night.
Something got to come out good for me, and my prayers with Mike Tyson. I hope Mike Tyson's hand heals, and hopefully it'll be another Tyson-Mathis fight.
Well, the Tyson camp was quick to say the former champ's next fight will be with Buster Mathis on Fox TV once everyone can work out an appropriate date. Mathis was scheduled to earn $800,000, Tyson $10 million. But now the one fight left on Saturday is the one on pay-per-view, the rubber match between Riddick BOWE and Evander Holyfield.
That I don't think, I was up against him. I'm still against Riddick BOWE. It's just a fight between us. I never considered, as people have a choice to see either one. Now they have one choice, and that's us.
It's unfortunate, and I wish him luck in the future. But I guess that just goes to show you that November 4th was meant to be for Riddick BOWE and Evander Holyfield.
Well, if Tyson and Mathis never fight, it would be Tyson's second ever cancellation. If they do fight, it would be his 4th postponement. Wonder if there's a line on that yet in Vegas.
Basically, I thought I could sneak it through. I know I wasn't thinking professionally. It's not my job to think as a doctor. My objective was to basically fight.
But there won't be a fight between Tyson and Mathis as Tyson drops out with a broken right thumb.
Of the ex-champ, free TV Saturday night. We'll have the X-Files. ABC, by the way, offers up maybe this time. But not this week for Mike Tyson out in Las Vegas, where when one craps game closes down, the customers simply move to another table. Same situation in boxing, where match number 2, which was match number 1 and probably was all along, that one, Holyfield BOWE, is still on. So now is Charlie Steiner to discuss the Tyson thumb injury, reaction to it, and anything else on Chaz Bowe's mind.
On the morning after the night before, both the MGM Grand and Fox Television, they were licking their wounds, both in terms of dollars and cents and PR points as a result of the cancellation of the Tyson-Mathis fight. Here at Caesars Palace, which will be housing the Holyfield-BOWE 3rd fight in their trilogy, there was as much talk at the pre-fight press conference about last night's cancellation as there was about this Saturday night's fight.
If the man says his hand is hurt, I have to believe that his hand is hurt because I think he could beat Buster Mathis with one hand.
I truly feel that if Tyson would have fought, I think the people would have bought the pay-per-view. I don't think it would affect us no way other way to fight. I truly believe if it would have been a pay-per-view fight, then it probably would have.
Rock, this Chiquita Banana ensemble this morning, what is the significance of this?
We see all things. We know all things. We watch, we see, we know ESPN.
Care to embellish?
For quite some time, I've been attempting to say to people in privately and publicly with you, old master, that there would be one fight on November the 4th, BOWE Holyfield 3. Thus we are here.
From a business point of view, what does this all mean now?
More money, more money, more money.
Well, there will surely be a surge and a swell in the number of pay-per-view buys that we get for BOWE Holyfield 3. Having been in the business myself for 18 years, and my company has been in the business now for 24 years of boxing, unfortunately, injuries are a part of the sport. We lost 4 Tyson fights. We've been here before with Tyson where we lost 4 fights due to Tyson injuries, so we take no comfort in the fact that Mike got hurt.
So boxing's golden cow with the broken thumb has put a halt to a lot of different fighters' plans. How's this thing going to shake out?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I know is, personally, it's got to have some impact on Mike Tyson, because not only was he faced with the prospect of fighting before maybe 2,000 or 2,500 people max at the MGM, which has to have him thinking about his draw and his allure, it also has to have him thinking about his invincibility. He's only fought 1 round, basically, or less than that, since he's been out of prison. And now this injury means he's going to have to take weeks and weeks to retool, and boxing fans will be waiting for a while to see Mike Tyson even in 1 more round of boxing.
So Tyson's doctors say it's going to be at least 4 to 6 weeks before he can get back into the ring. So the timetable is we'll not see Mike Tyson back in the ring until early 1996. For Al Bernstein, Charlie Steiner, ESPN at Caesars Palace, Las Vegas.
Thanks, guys. Later in Sports Center, we'll examine in more detail the impact of the cancellation on Mike Tyson's career and on the sport of boxing as a whole. Stay around for the second part of the story from Las Vegas. Robin?
Fox Television today did not respond to several inquiries about its future plans with Mike Tyson and whether it would televise Tyson's next fight. In New York City, Don King said he had nothing to do with the cancellation of the fight, that the decision was made by the doctors, and also had nothing to do with slow ticket sales at the MGM Grand. King spoke with SportsCenter during a break in a day filled with motions outside the presence of the jury in his federal fraud trial.
One story that just will not go away: the broken right thumb of Mike Tyson. We are joined now by a name you hear all the time at the fights, Dr. Flip Pomansky, who runs the medical department, the medical advisory board for the Nevada State Athletic Commission. Flip, these are the x-rays of Tyson's thumb. Give me a sense of what you see and when you saw it. One is from October 13th and the other is just from a couple of days ago.
October 10th, Charlie, and another one was done on Halloween, October 31st. It is of the distal phalanx, just beyond the fingernail, and it's a significant fracture. There's no question that this would have been tender every time he put pressure on it. The fracture is not a hairline, and I'm amazed he was able to go for 2 weeks before deciding that he couldn't fight.
Were you surprised, Dr. Pomansky, number one, that they waited, and number two, that they maybe didn't even check this again before Halloween?
Knowing Mike, he wanted this fight to go, and I think he did everything possible so that the doctors would at least give him a chance. On the 10th, there is enough separation that it would have been almost impossible to take a direct blow. The fracture is better on the 31st, but still nowhere near healed.
His doctors say he could be back within 4 to 6 weeks. Based on what you've seen on these x-rays, is that a realistic possibility?
Everybody heals differently. I will be surprised if he's at 100% in 4 weeks.
That's Dr. Flip Pomansky with the x-rays of Mike Tyson's broken thumb. Yes, indeed, it is legitimately broken. And the real question is, how could they have let this fight go on, going back as far as perhaps October 10th when they first discovered the break? For Dr. Flip Pomansky and Al Bernstein, Charlie Steiner, ESPN, Caesars Palace, Las Vegas.